I'm Will Anderson. Welcome to Gruen. We'll get to our panel in a moment, but first, this week, the NRMA released a board game. And if that sounds like a cry for help, that's because it is.
Help! The game, based on real-life risks. Brought to you by NRMA Insurance.
You're an insurance company, NRMA. You don't need a board game. I'm already bored. The NRMA say they're releasing Help! The game because insurance might be the last thing on your mind during the holidays. Yes, that's what makes them holidays. Anyway, if I was on holiday and I wanted a game about risks, I'd play Risk. If I wanted a game about 2020, I'd play Pandemic. So who would even buy Help! The game? Well, we would. It's an insurance write-off. And to be fair, Help! The game really does capture the feeling of 2020. You're stuck inside, enduring constant disasters, and the whole game is as frustrating as actually doing your insurance. After one round of Help! The game, I wanted to do this. But there was one part of Help! The game that I did love, that a game from NRMA Insurance has a character named Amy. That's your competitor's name. Now, every time I roll doubles, I sing... Lucky you're with Amy. Time to get a little help from our friends Todd Sampson, Priya Patel, Sunita Gloucester and Russell Howcroft. Here's a nugget. The average Australian gobbles 47.4 kilograms of chicken every year. That's higher than the US, the UK and anywhere in Europe. It exceeds the consumption of any other meat, including beef and lamb combined. This recent ad ruffled the feathers of some of our viewers. Take a gander. Russell, what did you think of it?
Well, it is disturbing, isn't it, when you get that end frame with the ovens, the light on. I was just thinking, why is that disturbing? Because we all know what happens to a chicken. We all know that in the end it's going to be cooked. And I think it's because we know in our mind's eye you can't fit a whole cow in the oven, you can't fit a whole sheep in the oven, you can't fit a whole pig in the oven, but you can fit a whole chicken in the oven. So you actually are imagining that the star of this piece of advertising has stuffed that whole chicken into the oven while it was still alive. It really... They've missed the mark, Will.
I really disagree, Will. That ad, I think, is differentiation on every level. And I think the best part about it is in COVID time, so that went out in July, the whole world pivoted to worthy messages about COVID, we're there for you, we've got your back. And they avoided all of that. There's no COVID reference at all. They just stuck to what everyone was doing at the time, cooking at home, being online and searching for recipes.
I think it's interesting use of hyperbole. So hyperbole works because humor allows us to not fact-check it in our minds. I think the reason the end kind of shocks people is a bit of cognitive dissonance there, because they're basically saying to us overtly, we love them to kill them.
Yeah. I think the team have made some really deliberate choices here. So they know that vegans and vegetarians aren't ever going to respond to this. They're going to be very vocal, active rejectors of any meat advertising. So they are basically talking to the majority, the silent majority of meat eaters, and I think they're doing it with a little wink. And for me, they don't actually show the dead bird. They just sort of cue it with that glowing oven. So I think... I agree with Sunita that it makes it memorable. You know, the protein is pretty bland, and you don't want bland advertising as well. You want something that sticks in your head.
They'll know if they've succeeded with this advertising if mum or dad says to the kids, "Oh, kids, you know, we've got our friend in the oven." Because ultimately, That's ultimately what this advertising is saying, right? We put our friends in the oven.
No, that is not what the ad is saying.
This ad is all about taste.
There's nothing about taste in that advertising at all.
Friends don't eat friends. Australia's beef consumption is down, which explains why Australian beef has a beef with its own customers.
Just some beef mince, please.
Just some beef mince. Tell me, was Bradman just a cricketer, Peter?
Don Bradman was the greatest.
I hear, Bill.
Did Kate just do a spot of telly?
And I suppose your mum Denise makes just a bolognese.
Peter.
Probably Maddie's brother is doing so well in the chicken game. Lamb ran with this rejected episode of Black Mirror.
Game over, mate. We're going to a barbecue.
The algorithm is working.
I get it. You're using cookies to bring everyone together.
No, Smash. We're using lamb.
Remember when lamb ads used to be about lamb? Like many atrocities, that ad coincided with Australia Day. Priya, why doesn't chicken own a day?
Well, chicken, unlike the red meat marketing, isn't really coordinated by an industry body. So it's individual brands all just doing their own thing, finding their space in consumer mindset, finding their space in the repertoire. With the red meat guys, the industry body, the Meat and Livestock Australia, MLA, they kind of have reoccurring themes that they bring through in the work and that they push through to the audiences time after time after time. So they're always dialing up Aussie provenance and kind of celebrating that superior taste that comes from it, coming from Australia.
Chicken doesn't need to own a day because chicken is an unbelievably well-priced product that feeds families every single day. You know, so that's ultimately its price and its availability allows it to own everything. What's so interesting is that
You've
lamb
just given
commercial.
me the classic, you know, when your kids say, when's Kids' Day? And you're like, it's Kids' Day every day? It's Chicken Day every day.
Every day, exactly. But, you know, there is a tradition of owning a day, of course, you know. So in the Christian religion, Fridays and fish, yeah? So they, of course, have done very well off the back of that. So there isn't really a need for chicken to do it.
Yeah.
From chicken to chicken of the sea, fish. When COVID hit and exports stopped, Seafood Industry Australia was hit hard. So SIA, no, not that SIA, this one, has just cast out its first big campaign.
Australia. There's one thing we're experts in. It's easy. We make names easier. Daz, Shaz, mate. And when it comes to an easy feed, we experted that ages ago. Hey, Hoax. G'day, boys. Hello. Just some of those prawns, please. You beauty. Hooroo, guys. Bye. Beep. Beep. So why do we fall to pieces when it comes to seafood? There's nothing to it. You can barbie a barra, sear some snapper, or open up some oysters. So come on, Australia, let's eat more seafood. It's easy as.
There's something fishy about all these spokesbeards. What are they hiding other than their chins? Sunita, when it comes to selling seafood, will Aussies take this bait?
Look, I feel a little sorry for this ad, but what I think might save it is Santa, because we're about to come into the seasonal uplift of eating seafood. So in Australia, Christmas is seafood. We eat 40% of our prawns at Christmas time. But I reckon the marketing strategy and the advertising strategy could have been a little smarter on this one. 33% of frequent seafood eaters represent 75% of consumption. I think it's a bit like tennis balls. Well, if you throw me 10 tennis balls, I'm unlikely to catch any of them. I might start dodging them. If you threw me one, I'd catch it. And it's just like advertising. Don't throw me so many messages.
I do think this is a good one to separate strategy from execution, because strategically, I can understand where they're coming from. So the research would have told them of all the meats, seafood's the most complicated. It's the most complicated in terms of choice, which they demonstrate in the ad. It's also perceived as the most complicated in terms of how to cook it. So the literal strategy is, it's easy. And I could imagine the sell-in was the line. So they would have went in and said, we got a line, easy as, and the client would have sat up and went, we love the line, and anything that came after that, they would have been okay with.
It's interesting, isn't it, that there seems to be, there's almost like in execution sense, whether it's seafood or whether it's lamb or whether it's beef, if you're in the protein business, you've got to try and be funny.
I would agree that executionally, I think they're trying to borrow cues from meat, right? So you've got the spokesperson talking to camera, you've got the humour, you've got a jingle, you've got that catchy, memorable phrase, easy as, which is kind of similar to what meat have been doing for years and years, like the greatest meat on earth or get some pork on your fork. So it is interesting how they're almost mimicking, I suppose, the great meat advertising of the past. And I do think it's interesting that they're trying to break down the rational barriers to eating fish. So you do think of it strategically as a quite complicated thing that you need skill or specialist knowledge to make. And I do think they're tackling that head on and just going, actually, it is super simple and you can do it at home.
But there's a burning platform here, and the burning platform is we have a whole lot of seafood sitting on airport tarmacs and in Australia because our exports dried off. So advertising is there to sell the product. So they should have been just encouraging us to buy Australian overtly.
But I think they're scared. I think they're scared to make a direct and overt association between COVID and seafood. But to make that association, or even to imply that association by saying, have local, will make people start to question, whoa, wait now, is there an issue with seafood when it comes to COVID? That's the reason I think it's a really good idea, but I think that's the reason they're holding back.
I think it's about investment, Will. They were trying to do a whole lot of stuff in one ad. They were just trying to do everything in a 30-second commercial, and they put too many messages in.
You're right. You're right in that they haven't actually put a whole lot of money into it because they haven't got a whole lot of money, which in itself is nonsense. Of course they've got plenty of money. They just choose not to use the funds that they've got to promote their brand, to promote a reason to purchase, to actually promote Buy Australian. They make half decisions. And this happens all the time in the world of marketing. You should be spending 10 million and you spend 5 and you get half the result that you wanted for the 10.
Controversially, Russell's solution, once again, is to spend more money on marketing and advertising. Costco sells its $1.50 hot dog and soft drink deal at a loss and once considered upping the price until the founder laid down the law rather eloquently. If you raise the price of the effing hot dog, I will kill you. For years, supermarket roast chickens have also been down on price. Together, Coles and Woolies sell 90 million of them a year, sometimes for even less than raw chicken.
It's like the Cadbury favourites of the protein world, Will. You know, it's the thing you bring when you're asked not to bring a thing. It's such a simple acquisition. And it's a wonderful thing. I mean, the cooked chook, you think about the uses of the cooked chook and think about just how many people are satisfied and happy as a result. It's unbelievably well priced and the happiness that it brings is incredible. Now, I don't want to celebrate the industrialisation of the cooked chook, but that's actually what's occurred here. And as a result, lots of families get to feed their family for very, very, very few dollars.
Lately, all the big fast food brands are getting clucky spruiking chicken. Australia used to be the meat-eating capital of the world, but recently our fast food joints have been seeding this.
Hungry Jack's has burgers with no meat.
The Rebel Whopper has no beef?
Everyone can enjoy Domino's new plant-based beef range.
McPlant? The slackers at Macca's are getting McLazy. McTodd, will this McSell?
First, I think it's important to look at the targeting. They are targeting meat lovers with slightly guilty conscience. They're not targeting vegos to try to convert them. And we know that by the fact that they're using the illusion of taste. So they're saying it tastes like meat. So vegos are not looking for things that taste like meat. They want to disassociate. But the thing with this is, will it work? On some level, initially, yes. I used to work on McDonald's. We launched salad in Australia. And
they've still got that original salad, don't they, that you launched? No one ever bought it.
The side effect of salad was an increase in Big Macs.
It's just the side.
It was an increase in Big Macs. And the reason for that is, what this does very, very well is it gives permission and takes away a bit of guilt and shame, particularly if you have a family.
It's pretty interesting to watch a behemoth like Macca's believe that they need to get into this food. So it just takes me back to when they went from polystyrene packaging to cardboard.
The biggest marketing challenge for them now is scale. Because once McDonald's agrees to it, its distribution is so enormous that businesses that are geared to make these products are not geared to deal with that level of distribution. So the problem they're going to have, it's going to be being able to feed the distribution that it's going to have globally.
Steggles, owned by the same supplier as Lilydale, counterintuitively sponsors the NRL's Sydney Roosters and is now trying to get us to shake our tail feather by sneaking branded songs into Spotify workout playlists, including this techno turkey.
Ugly is good for you. Steggles turkey is good for you.
I like it, but I wonder what the jingle experts make of it. What is 5G? Easy, it's 4G plus 1. The new cellular network has been slowly rolling out for a year now, but brands are still struggling to explain 5G. Optus had a crack.
Installation's simple. You just plug in.
And play.
Oh, now I do get it. 5G sounds terrible. But you know who does understand 5G? Conspiracy theorists.
We are going to be in a radiation soup that we cannot opt out of.
Radiation soup, terrifying and delicious. Anti-5G protests have erupted in the scientific heart of the country, Byron Bay.
We don't need more radiation. We don't need more radiation.
Oh, I'm convinced. Now Telstra is taking conspiracy theorists head-on with an online campaign.
5G is dangerous. 5G caused COVID. 5G faked the moon landing. These are some things that you might have read online, especially if you follow my Uncle Ed on social media. I'm Mark Humphreys, and Telstra has hired me to investigate these claims to find out what this is all about. So keep your eyes peeled for me in your news feed over the next few weeks, and please, not my Uncle Ed.
That ad is a part of a series that tackles common 5G fears with real scientists that you can tell are real because they're dressed just like fake scientists.
5G and other telecommunication radio frequencies do not affect the immune system.
Wow.
And calm debunking.
Nothing can protect you from 5G.
Because there's nothing you need protection from.
Underneath the video are comments like, geez, you guys are trying really hard to debunk all these theories. Kind of seems obvious you have something to hide. I can think of another reason 420 Benny might be paranoid. Sunita, can Telstra ever convince people 5G is safe?
Well, I don't think this ad is trying to be persuasive. It's just trying to be responsible. How this started was people were posting comments on Telstra's website and Facebook, which were Stop 5G, a link to coronavirus, and all those theories were coming out. Now, in Australia, advertisers are bound by a code of ethics, which was to moderate any comments that could be potentially harmful or misleading or misinformation on their websites. They actually have to address them. So Telstra had to do something, and they had two choices. They could either take the comments down, but as you know, that will fuel the conspiracy theorists who'll think there's something to hide, or they respond. So they either respond factually, but we know that you can't argue with a conspiracy theorist because they just don't take challenge. So they instead rebutted it with creativity. And I think the use of satire, which is to take ridiculousness to ridiculousness, was well played. So those ads only ran in social media where people were posting those comments, which is the petri dish of where conspiracy theories breed, and that's all you ever saw them. So of all the advertising Telstra do, that campaign was just a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of 5G work, just to post that they were doing something responsible on user-generated comments.
Telstra doesn't need to change people's minds. They just need to change people's behaviour. And the best way to do that is focus on what's in it for me. What are the benefits? We don't know exactly, when we sell cars, we don't tell people how it works. We tell them about the benefit of getting that car. And if they focus on the benefits, which are really only two, speed and bandwidth. For example, if it takes 4G 6 minutes to download a movie, it takes 5G 3 seconds. People are not going to worry about safety when they hear that. They're going to focus on the benefit to them.
Yeah, but there is language out there, you know, over the last 15 years where we know that networks get upgraded. And so we know that an iPhone goes from a 6 to a 7, from a 7 to an 8. And we do know that a 3G was launched to 4. I think we do. There's a sense that there is network upgrade and it is a 1G to a 2G to a 3G. I do think that there's understanding around that in the Australian populace.
I think it was also a question of timing, though, Todd. So you have the whole world was consumed by misinformation and pandemics. I mean, there were some theories that said that we went into lockdown so that Telstra could build the 5G network while we were all in our houses. So I think they had to do something. Even the government came out to say that 5G was not connected to coronavirus, right? So I think Telstra did the only other thing they could do, which is to use satire to point out the ridiculousness just to the people, which was the fringe, that were concerned about it.
And the irony for the conspiracy theorists is that the 5G conspiracies are travelling slower on 4G than they would if they were on 5G.
But I think there is an information void, right? So something like 91% of Aussies know that 5G exists, but no one, I think it's 24% of people would consider upgrading a device to actually get it, because no one actually knows what it does for you. So yes, you've got these sort of faster, but I think there's real upgrade fatigue. Like, how much faster do you need to go? It's the same with Apple now. With every new release, everyone's a bit like, really? Like, the features or the benefits have to be so much better to make me want to go out and get the next thing. And I think at the moment, no one really knows what 5G can do for them. And unfortunately, in the climate that we're living in, that void, that information void, gets filled with nonsense. It gets filled with people going, oh, it's government spreading lies, or it's kind of like a secret network for coronavirus. I think it's just the lack of tangible knowledge about what 5G can do that means the conspiracy theories even get any air.
5G has barely rolled out around the country. It's actually easier to get COVID than it is to find a 5G signal right now. Russell, why advertise something that most of us can't get yet?
Well, because I think that there's a genuine risk. There is a genuine risk that 5G is seen to be something that you don't want to have a part of in your life. There's a consumer risk, is what I'm trying to say. And what happens with negative stories is negative stories, they land, and they land really solidly with consumers. You know, there's a theory that you've got to have 7 positive messages in order to balance out the 1 negative message that you've heard. So they can't afford for 5G to be dead on arrival. They've got no choice. They absolutely have to communicate the benefits of it and get the public just wanting more, because we do want more. When it comes to technology, we're always up for, you know, faster, cheaper, better.
Yeah. For my sins, I worked on the rollout of NBN way back, and I can see the strategy here with 5G. People are pissed off with the NBN. It didn't deliver what people wanted. So now is the perfect time for 5G to launch themselves from a positioning point of view in there as a credible alternative.
And I think this is the issue with most tech. It's often a vision before it's a reality. So you're imagining, the same did happen with 3G, you're imagining the potential of 3G and you're trying to kind of articulate what it might be able to do. But the truth is we don't actually know where 5G might take us. And that's kind of quite exciting, but yeah, a bit of an unknown.
OK, so what I'm hearing is that you can't rule out mind control. Interesting.
Yeah, I know. But part of the role of Telstra, I mean, just given their sheer size and the size of their marketing and advertising budget, part of their role is to educate, inform and educate, and they would see that as one of the objectives. Every single year when they go about writing their advertising plan, they do need to contribute to our knowledge of what's going on in a technology sense. There's also a social licence element to this as well. Telstra is, you know, such a behemoth. It's very important that society understands their role. And again, I think advertising plays a role doing that. And in this 5G world, they're playing a role in educating us.
Once upon a time, Telstra sold new technology like this.
It's easy to make a video call on your NextG mobile. Go to your contact list and select who you want to call. Press Video Call.
That's right, kids. Phones used to be as big as a room. Nowadays, Telstra sells 5G like this.
The new iPhone 12 Pro with 5G is here.
Tonight, I'll be eating radiation soup, apparently. And Apple wants to show that 5G is a blast. OK, 5G really does look dangerous. People are already scared of this product. Priya, is this the wrong strategy?
I just think in this one, you lose some of the joy. Like, that blast doesn't feel particularly joyful. And I still think we're in a world where we're just talking about power and you still don't really understand what that gives you. So I think they need benefits, not analogies, to make that successful and get uptake, really.
I find that ad unbelievably seductive, Will. Yeah, no, the whole idea that that phone's going to give me all that power is very exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom!
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
This month, China successfully launched the world's first 6G satellite. I'm not keen. I hear 6G causes COVID-20. But perhaps progress doesn't need to be so endless. Just ask Ollie Gordon, one of Australia's last 2G users. In 2016, Telstra even invited Ollie to shut down the network himself.
So it's a big day here at Telstra. We are getting ready to say goodbye to the 2G network.
Yeah, we're just worrying it's all good to shut down the 2G network. That's right with you.
If only conspiracy theorists had their own Ollie. So we contacted Ollie, a WA musician who is still with Telstra on 4G. Ollie has no immediate plans to upgrade to 5G, but he did spot this graffiti on his morning walk. Corona crap, 5G bad. I actually agree with half of that. Try to guess which half. Tweet your answers to @NormanSwan. Thanks to our panel, Todd, Priya, Sunita and Russell. And just before we go, Russell, we have a surprise for you. It's a plane ticket so you can join us in the studio when the borders open next week. We're paying for that ticket by selling the screen you've been appearing on.